Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books and things that I hope to get up to in the month of November. The end of the year is coming and I feel like I've got a lot that I would like to read before the year ends, before we get to the end of 2025. So I feel like I've had some good October reading energy, that I'm in a good flow, I'm in a good light reading habit, I am doing the things. But there is a large chunk of things that I would like to achieve over the next month or so. November for me is looking like it should be a relatively normal standard month. I do have one work trip planned for the final week of November, but it will just be for 4 days, 3 nights. So hopefully should be relatively reasonable and won't, take over the month at all. So hopefully I'll be able to get through all of these things that I have planned. Sorry, I missed last week's video. I was ill. I had a cold, I just couldn't face it. I just needed to be a potato. It happens, but we're back, we're here, we're going. Okay, so we're gonna talk through some of the November things. I'll mix and match things that I own, things that I don't own. We're just embracing the chaos of not working through the TBR because there are so many new releases and sequels that I would like to get to. So those are the priorities. We'll just embrace that chaos and embrace that the TBR is not going to go down. It's just staying consistent, but consistent is better than going up. So I don't know where I want to start with this because I don't know which ones I want to read first. It's just all of them. I have been working my way through my Witchlands reread and I've been continuing to do that and I'm feeling really positive about this. So I'm feeling positive that I will actually be able to finish this series by the end of the year. I don't want to jinx anything though, so touch wood, touch the wood of the bookshelves. I think I can finish the series by the end of the year if I keep up with my momentum. So I have been rereading the series on audiobook and going into November, I am going to be starting my reread of Blood Witch. This one I read a good few years ago. I feel like I've forgotten the whole thing. Actually rereading the second book, I was like, I've read this book twice. How have I forgotten this whole thing? Yeah, I've really done a number on this series of forgetting it. But I'm now I'm just finishing off Sight Witch, which is book 2.5. Just finishing that one off, and then I can dive into this one. This whole series is set in the Witchlands. You have different powers or different witches, and we're following two main characters, Safi and Isolde, who are best of friends, and is seeing their relationships. The world in and of itself is coming to the end of a 20-year truce between all these different countries, and so we know that there's this threat of, are they going to go back into a war? And Safi and Isolde end up in the whole mix of things in the middle of it because it is revealed that Safi is a truth witch, and this is a very rare skill that hasn't been seen in hundreds of years, and all of the powers that be, all of the rulers of these empires want to be able to control her and have her powers. But there's a whole lots of lore and history of the world that is also becoming unraveled and opening up, and things that be, there's different romantic relationships. I'm really enjoying it. It's probably in that crossover between YA to adult, depending on where it gets classed, that I think it got marketed as YA, but I could see it being an adult series. It's been a long time coming for the final book that's coming out in November. I'm not going to be ready for its release, but I think I will be ready by the end of the year. So if I can get to Blood Witch in November, and maybe I'll end up starting Witchlight. Is that the fourth one? I own it. Maybe I could end up starting that one so that I could read the fifth one in December, or read the fourth and the fifth in December. Well, you see what I mean. Those ones I'd have to read physically, but here we go. Continuing with this and having a really great time. Also thinking about wrapping up series. I have managed to finish one this month in October, but there's definitely still quite a few on the docket. I do have a few days left in October, but we'll see what ends up getting picked up later when I finish my current reads. It could be one of these things, so it could happen. But I have the Nightshade God to read by Hannah Witten. This is the third and final book in the Nightshade Crown trilogy, which I've spoken about a few times now. I've been reading it since summer, the first book being The Foxglove King, following a main character, Law, who has necromancy powers. These are illegal, forbidden powers, but in the first book these powers get revealed, and instead of being put to death, the king, the rulers of the empire, decide that they want her to use her powers to figure out what's going on with villages that are all dying simultaneously. and so she enters into the royal courts to investigate this, as well as the king says, you need to keep your eye on my son and see what he's doing, because there's these threats coming in from other empires. There's lots of like magic to do with the gods of this world, and I would just like to wrap this all up and see how it all concludes. Speaking of conclusions, the conclusion to The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson is coming out in November. That is the last wish of Bristol Keats. I had a lot of fun with this. I really enjoyed it when I read it last year. I think I absolutely flew through it. It's like a fantasy romance fae story following Bristol Keats, and she enters into the world of fairies to investigate what has happened to her parents, who are recorded as dead, but she thinks that there's a lot more going on to it and that they are potentially actually alive, and some nefarious things have happened, and so she's entering into the fairy courts and investigating what is going on, whilst also sort of trying to like infiltrate them and potentially falling in love with their ruler. Yeah, I feel like I had such a good time with this. Would like to see how this whole duology concludes. And the final conclusion that I still have on my plans is the finale to the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rorich. So that is called Lady of Starfire. So I've read the first 4 books so far this year. The 5th book came out at the end of August. I haven't quite got to it yet, and I don't quite own it yet either, because I think I pre-ordered it and then I was away, and so I cancelled that, and then I just haven't gone and picked it up. But Lady of Starfire, it is the 5th and final book in this fantasy romance series that is very, very reminiscent of Sarah J. Maas's works, such as Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. We're following main character Scarlet, who is an assassin, and in the first book she has gone through some traumatic events and has taken a step back from the assassin's keep and has been living in this merchant's household, and then the assassin will try to bring her back into the fold by giving her a task, knowing that the person that he is tasking her to kill was also responsible for the death of her mother. And things go from there. There's lots of different powers and twists and turns with the fae of this world, and exploring that you start off in the human world, but there's actually a whole different like chunk of peoples and powers outside of that slowly get revealed to us as the reader. So I am excited to see how that all concludes. Another one. There's a lot of continuations that I would like to get to this month. Lots of continuations. It's what I have been doing in October, but there's still more. There's more. Another continuation, which I did forget about in my anticipated releases for the end of the year, when I did my one for October, November, December. I did forget about this. Like, I feel as though this book, I see it and I'm like, oh, I think when I first saw it, I was like, oh, you're coming out this year? Oh, okay, cool, surprise. Saw it, thought, surprised, okay, great, add that to the list. Then promptly forgot about it. Then I saw it again and I was like, oh yeah, and then I forgot about it again. And then saw that it was available to request from Orbit, and I was like, oh yeah, that one. So now it's arrived, it's in my home. So thank you so much, Orbit, for sending me The War Beyond by Andrea Stewart. This is the sequel to The Gods Below, which I read and really thoroughly enjoyed last year. I read all of Andrea Stewart's books, so she also has the Bone Shard Daughter trilogy, which I read and thoroughly enjoyed. So now that's here, I can't forget about it. So Orbit kindly sent me this. It arrived yesterday, and when it arrived I was like, I know Orbit is sending me something. What are they sending me? Like, I know I requested this, but this doesn't come out until November. And I was like, Abby, November's next week. Like, you're nearly there. I think this is a little bit early, like it's a couple of weeks early ahead of its release, but here it is. This is The War Beyond. The first book, it's set in this futuristic dystopian-like world, which is going through constant change. Like, oh god, it's been a while since I described this one. Ooh. So there are like safe havens where humanity is like fleeing to, where the world is still as it was, and then it keeps going through these evolutions. And when a wave goes through, it brings sort of life back to the world, but it also completely changes it. So whatever was there could be completely different. It either kills the humans that are there, or they wake up transformed and they could be like, they could grow wings or horns or something, and they are monstrous from what they were. And so the humans are fleeing into these safe havens, but these safe havens are dying and they don't have much life within them. And so then we follow these two sisters that are on opposing sides, that one of them makes it through into a safe haven at the start of the book and it grows up living there, and the other sister doesn't make it through and ends up being transformed. And each side worships the gods in slightly different ways. That the people on one side believe that it is this god that is driving these changes, and they need to worship him and need to bring these changes through into the rest of the world, and the other side is trying to fight against that and maintain their position. Then there was another perspective that was like channeling into the center of the earth to try and find like the reasoning for this with these gems, and it was a really interesting one. I don't feel like I've heard loads of people speak about it. Like, I think it had a little bit of buzz when the first one came out. I read it, I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it was in a book box, but then I didn't really hear much about it since. But I really enjoyed the different relationships that we saw throughout this, the sisterly one, the romantic ones, the twists and turns that it went through, the like really interesting magic and lore. So excited to see where it all goes. A couple of other sequels, because there's just more sequels. It's a month of sequels, finales, all of those things. Obviously, time of year for just cozying down with a good book. So another one that is coming out in November is the sequel to Quicksilver by Kelly Hart. This is the first book in a fantasy romance series. The second book is called Brimstone. I've read this around the same time as Bristol Keats. I just was like, I need easy, I need fun, and both those books were really fun and easy to fly through, despite them being a little bit chunkier. So this is a fantasy romance series. We're following Saris Fane, and she in the first book ends up like getting transported through this pool of silver into another world, into the Fey world, and this is the first time that the portals have opened between these worlds in a millennia. And so now that she's in this Fey world, they want her to be able to open more of these portals. But she has this conflict that where she's come from is really hard, but she's got family there. She wants to get back. She doesn't, at first she doesn't believe that the Fae actually exist, and she's like, what am I doing here? That it's completely different worlds. And there's a very strong romantic plotline with this guy called Kingfisher. Yeah, excited to see where the sequel goes, because this ended on quite a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I'm still going, unrealistically still going. I also still have the 9th book in the Veronica Speedwell series, A Grave Robbery by Deanna Raybourn. I have seen that definitely the 10th book is coming out next year, but that's in hardback, so I'll have to wait. These are fun murder mysteries set in the Victorian times, following our main character, Veronica, who is a lepidoporist, and she's a very independent young woman who does not want to be constrained by society. She has her romantic interest, Stoker, and they investigate different murders that typically stand alone, but there is still an overarching plot that goes between the whole series. I sort of read through all 8 of the previous books last year, and somehow I have delayed all of this year reading this 9th one. I would like to get to it. Maybe this one will come with me on my work trip, because I did take quite a few of them on work trips, so I think they are very good for a work trip, considering the length of them and how easy they are to read. So this one, and then 2 that I am very excited about, I've left till last. The sequel to The Will of the Many, The Strength of the Few by James Islington is coming out in November. I do actually have an advanced copy of this on my Kindle ready to go. I'm ready, I just don't know if I'm mentally ready, but I am ready-ish. So I am very excited to dive into it. The font on it is quite small, but I remember the font in this being quite small, so I just maybe need to mentally prepare my eyes for that. I'm very excited for the sequel to come out. In this, we're following the main character Viz, who is a orphan, and at the beginning of the book he gets adopted with the idea that he will be trained to enter into this academy that his adopted parent is very intrigued by what's going on at this academy. His brother's got missing there. He thinks that there's different political factions at play, and so he wants to train Viz up to enter in, as he can't pretend to be a student, to investigate what's going on there, and also raise him up within society. The society in this world is very hierarchical, that there are everyone sees their will up, and there are 8 levels. So if you're on level 8, you just seed your will and you don't receive any, and that pretty much puts you in a negative position, and it drains your energy. And then as you work your way up, the more will that you get, the more powerful and more healthy that you are, but also the more magic that you have. So someone who's on level 5 will be able to have some sort of level of magic and skill, compared to somebody that's on a lower, more strength as well, on a lower tier. So it's got a very Roman inspired setting and lore to it all. There's lots of twists and turns. Viz is very intelligent. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was the first book I read this year, and I flew through it. I was on holiday at the time, which it was just great. So I would very excited to see where the second book goes. I've heard good things as well, so very excited about that. Finally, one that I've been very excited about, but just been delaying a little bit, is I would love to get to Alchemized by Senlin Yu. This is a new-ish release now. It's a chunky one, it's big, it's about 1,000 pages. I very recently read Manacled, which is the fan fiction that this is based on, and it's set in a war-torn world where the dark powers have won, and we're following Helena, who was part of the resistance until they fell. She has been locked up for quite a long time and is coming to her release, but she has lost a lot of her memories. She has wiped them from her mind in order to protect them, protect the memories, protect the people that she is trying to protect. And then we are also following the High Reeve, and at least in the like fanfiction version, she ends up getting like sold to him in a very Handmaid-esque style relationship. I'm really excited to see the magic system within this and how it's like a new world, but also with the bones of Manacled, which I did recently read, which is why I wanted to have like a bit of a gap between the two of them so I could see them as their own works and their own things. But I really enjoyed the writing style in Manacled, and I found it so compulsively readable that I really hope this delivers that same feelings in the way that it just took over my life for those few days that I read it. Right, there we go. That is everything that I would like to read in November. Unrealistically, I think some of those will go into December, but there is, you know, the things that I have on my radar of high priority books for the next few weeks. Let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on any of them, or if you're planning to pick them up as well over the next month or so. And I hope everybody has had a great October and start to November. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!